I still remember the day I married Linda, standing there in a crisp suit, my heart pounding with a mix of nerves and excitement. We were young, brimming with dreams of a secure and successful future, a cozy home, maybe a couple kids running around, and a life woven together with love and mutual support. The world felt wide open, and I believed we could conquer anything as long as we had each other. But life is a way of unraveling even the best laid plans, and as the years passed, our marriage became a tangled web of complexities and challenges I never saw coming. In those early days, I threw myself headfirst into my career as a civil engineer. I was ambitious, driven by the idea that my hard work would build a foundation for everything we wanted. I'd spend long hours sketching blueprints, calculating load-bearing capacities, and chasing promotions, convinced that every late night at the office was a step toward our shared dreams. But that ambition came with a price I didn't fully grasp at the time. My job demanded constant travel, weeks away on construction sites in distant cities, sleeping in sterile hotel rooms, and living out of a suitcase. I'd call Linda from payphones or later my clunky cell phone, promising her it was all temporary, that soon we'd have a stability we craved. She'd smile through the static, her voice warm but tinged with a patience I took for granted. At first, she accepted my absences as a necessary sacrifice, but as the months turned into years, the emotional distance between us began to grow like a quiet, creeping vine. It wasn't obvious at first. The shift was subtle, almost imperceptible, a missed call here, a shorter conversation there. Linda started filling the void I left behind with her own life. She took up painting, joined a book club, and threw herself into her part-time job at a local gallery. I'd come home exhausted, lugging my suitcase through the door, and find her engrossed in a canvas or chatting animatedly about a novel I hadn't read. I was proud of her independence, but I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling that we were drifting apart. Our once effortless connection, the way we'd laugh over burnt dinners or debate the meaning of life until midnight, was fading. Our conversations turned shallow, polite exchanges about the weather or what to make for dinner. The silences grew longer, heavier, until it felt like we were two strangers sharing a house rather than a marriage. I tried to convince myself it was just a phase. We were busy, I told myself, adjusting to the rhythms of adult life. But deep down, I knew something was off. Linda's demeanor changed. She'd linger at the gallery after hours, her phone buzzing with texts she'd quickly dismiss. When I'd ask about her day, her answers were vague, her eyes avoiding mine. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying our interactions, wondering when we'd stop being a team. The unease gnawed at me, but I pushed it aside, too afraid to face what it might mean. Then came the moment I couldn't ignore. One evening, after another grueling trip, I came home to an empty house. Linda had said she was meeting a friend, but it was late, too late. My gut twisted as I dialed her number, only to hear go straight to voicemail. When she finally walked in, her hair slightly mussed and her cheeks flushed, she brushed off my questions with a forced laugh, saying I was overreacting, but her defensiveness lit a fuse in me. I pressed her, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear, and she snapped back, accusing me of smothering her. That fight was a turning point. It stripped away the last of my denial, leaving me with a cold, hard truth. Something was deeply wrong, and our marriage was teetering on the edge. The final blow landed on our 5th anniversary. I'd spent weeks planning a night to reclaim what we'd lost. A candlelit dinner at the Italian restaurant where we'd had our first date. A playlist of songs from our early days. Even a handwritten letter telling her how much I still loved her. I wanted to fight for us, to bridge the chasm that had grown between us. But when I called to confirm our plans, she was evasive, saying she had to finish something at work. I waited at home, the table set, the candles flickering, until the hours stretched too long. On a hunch I couldn't shake, I drove to the gallery, only to find it dark and locked. My heart sank as I dialed a friend who worked nearby, and after some hesitation, he admitted he'd seen Linda at a hotel bar across town with someone else. I don't remember much of the drive there, just a blur of streetlights and the pounding in my chest. When I walked into that hotel lobby and saw her, laughing, her hand resting on another man's arm, the world tilted. I confronted her right there, my voice shaking with rage and heartbreak. She didn't deny it, didn't even try to explain. She just looked at me, her eyes cold and distant, and said, "I've been unhappy for a long time." Those words cut deeper than the betrayal itself. I'd been blind, clinging to a version of us that no longer existed, while she'd moved on without me. That night, I left the hotel alone, the weight of our shattered marriage pressing down on me. The next day, I filed for divorce. What followed was a brutal, messy unraveling. Linda spun a story to our friends and her lawyer, painting herself as a neglected wife driven to desperate measures by my absence. I fought back, laying bare the truth of her infidelity, but the legal battle drained me, financially, emotionally, spiritually. Every court date, every argument over assets, felt like peeling back another layer of a life I'd thought was real. By the time the papers were signed, I was a shell of the man I'd been. But I was free. Looking back now, I see it all so clearly. Neglect is a slow poison. It seeps in unnoticed, eroding the foundation of a relationship until there's nothing left to save. I was gone too much, yes, but Linda checked out too, choosing escape over effort. We both failed to nurture what we had, and that failure festered into something irreparable. I've spent countless nights replaying those years, pinpointing the moments I could have acted, the late-night silences, the deflected questions, the way she stopped reaching for my hand. They were all signs, flashing warnings I didn't heed until it was too late. If I could tell anyone anything from this, it's this: don't ignore the cracks. Emotional distance isn't just a phase. It's a symptom. When the laughter fades, when the conversations dry up, when you feel more alone together than apart, pay attention. Address it, fight for it, or let it go, but don't let it fester. And if respect and commitment aren't mutual, if one of you has already walked away in their heart, don't cling to a ghost. Walking away from Linda was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the healthiest. Not every love story is meant to last, and sometimes the bravest choice is knowing when to close the book. This journey broke me open, but it also taught me who I am and what I need. It's a painful lesson, etched into every fiber of me. And if sharing it helps even one person see their own truth a little clearer, then maybe there's purpose in the wreckage after all.